When you understand the mystery of the state akin to sleep, you hold the key to the treasury of heaven, for it is in this sacred borderland between waking and sleeping that your word becomes flesh, that your imagination weaves its patterns into the fabric of reality. The world knows nothing of this law, for it believes that action, labor, and circumstance shape destiny, but the awakened man knows that the true workshop of creation lies in the quiet stillness of the mind, just before it surrenders to slumber. There, in that hallowed silence, all wealth is conceived, all abundance is born, and every desire finds its path to manifestation. You may work for money, but money answers to states of consciousness. It is not the result of effort. It is the reflection of assumption. The world you see by day is molded in the visions you entertain by night. When you drift into that sacred drowsiness, neither fully awake nor yet asleep, your conscious resistance dissolves, and the subconscious, your faithful servant, takes every impression as law. What you feel real in that state, what you imagine with emotion and conviction, becomes the seed of your tomorrow. You cannot plant one image in this fertile soil and reap another. To imagine wealth in that stillness is to command it into form. Most men pray with their lips while their hearts deny what they asked for. They say, "I am rich," yet deep within they feel lack. In the state akin to sleep, the heart and mind become one. There is no effort there, no struggle, no contradiction, only acceptance. Whatever is accepted in that state must externalize, for the subconscious creates without question. It is the law of life that as within, so without, as above, so below. The outer world merely echoes the inner decree. If you could learn to fall asleep each night as one already in possession of your desire, if you could feel the thrill of wealth as though it were now yours, you would awaken in a world rearranged to mirror that conviction. Money would come, not through struggle, but through channels you could never predict. The how is never your concern. The feeling is the command, the prayer, the bridge between the invisible and the seen. This is the secret the ancients knew, but veiled in parables. When they said, "When you pray, believe that you have received," they spoke of this state. For belief is not a thought, it is a feeling of being. To enter the state akin to sleep with the feeling of wealth is to sleep in the end, fulfilled. You become one with your desire, and that oneness must appear as fact when you understand the mystery of creation. You come to know that the visible world is but a mirror reflecting the unseen imaginal acts that live within you. Nothing comes into being by accident. All is born from consciousness, and consciousness is your eternal self. The first key to mastering the state akin to sleep for money is realizing that every condition of your life, whether it be abundance or lack, is the result of an imaginal state impressed upon the subconscious. You may believe that effort, chance, or circumstance determines your wealth, but these are only shadows cast by the inner light of assumption. If you wish to change the shadow, you must alter the light. The outer cannot move first. It only obeys the direction of the inner vision. When you quiet the conscious mind and enter that sacred twilight between waking and sleeping, you stand at the doorway of creation itself. Here, in the stillness of the in-between, your thoughts are no longer scattered, and your feelings become the language of the divine. The subconscious, ever receptive, listens to your every feeling as though it were law. When you lie down at night, the world of effort fades. You no longer need to strive or reach. It is in this moment of soft surrender that the seed of wealth can be planted. The mind, tired of the day's noise, begins to drift, and the conscious guard relaxes its watch. Now the creative power within you is open, ready to receive the pattern of your desire. Here, you must be deliberate, for whatever you impress upon this receptive state will externalize in the world of form. Do not take with you into this silence thoughts of lack, struggle, or fear. The subconscious does not discriminate between what is wanted and what is dreaded. It gives form to whatever is felt deeply. Therefore, let every image be one of richness, every word within you one of gratitude, every sensation one of satisfaction. Feel the joy of wealth as if it were already so. Let your mind drift not into the memory of what was, but into the certainty of what now is, for in imagination it already exists. You must understand that imagining creates reality, and reality is nothing more than imagination solidified. When you enter the state akin to sleep, you are standing before the throne of creation. What you decree there must come to pass. You may see yourself holding a check, or perhaps standing in a home that represents wealth and ease. It does not matter how, the form is unimportant. What matters is the feeling of possession. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is what impresses the subconscious and sets in motion the unseen currents that rearrange your world. To imagine in this state is not idle dreaming, it is divine creation. You are not hoping for wealth. You are commanding it by assuming the feeling of already being wealthy. The law cannot fail you. It is impossible for it to return void. What you feel as true in this sacred silence must eventually appear in your outer life. Clothed in the garments of time and space, the world is filled with men who work tirelessly for money, yet few know that money is only a reflection of their inner wealth consciousness. The one who understands the law works not to make money, but to express the abundance already felt within. You must not strive for money as something outside yourself. You must feel yourself to be wealth itself, to be the very source from which it flows. When you identify yourself with abundance, the channels through which it comes multiply without effort. The subconscious mind will draw to you people, circumstances, and opportunities aligned with your inner assumption. The appearance of chance will be only the reflection of divine order. You will find that what you once chased now seeks you, and what you once doubted now unfolds with precision. This is not magic nor superstition. It is law, as certain as gravity. Many wonder why their desires seem delayed or unfulfilled, but delay is never denial. It is simply the unfolding of divine order according to the strength and persistence of your assumption. The subconscious does not respond to fleeting wishes. It responds to steady conviction. If each night before you sleep, you enter the state akin to sleep and assume the feeling of wealth with unwavering faith, your world must reflect that conviction. It is not your task to determine how or when. Your task is only to remain faithful to the end imagined. The rest is done for you in ways far beyond your conscious understanding. The second key lies in the art of feeling. Feeling is the bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. Thought without feeling is lifeless. It has no creative power. It is feeling that gives thought its substance, its reality, its command. The universe does not respond to words but to vibrations, and feeling is the vibration of consciousness. When you enter the state akin to sleep, you must bring with you the living emotion of fulfillment. It is not enough to imagine wealth. You must feel wealthy. You must feel the ease, the confidence, the freedom that money brings. You must rest in the sense of completion, knowing that what you desired has already been given. To the mind rooted in logic, this seems foolish, but to the awakened, it is divine wisdom. The world of cause is not physical but imaginal, and what is felt in imagination becomes fact in form. When you practice feeling in this way, you will find that your body begins to respond. A lightness may come over you, or a warmth may fill your chest. These are not mere sensations. They are the signs that your subconscious has received the impression. The moment the feeling becomes natural, creation is complete. You may not see its result at once, but the seed is already planted, and no force can prevent its growth. You have spoken the language of God, and the law must obey. If during your waking hours doubt arises, do not fight it. Simply return in mind to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Remember, you are not manifesting money. You are manifesting a state of being. Once the state of wealth becomes natural within you, all outer manifestations will align effortlessly. The true work is internal alignment. You are not called to struggle or to toil, but to believe and to feel. The struggle ends when you realize that your imagination is the only reality. You are not subject to the conditions of the outer world. The outer world is subject to you. Every event in your life is a mirror reflecting the state you have assumed. When you assume wealth, you no longer live in fear of lack. You no longer ask, when will it come? For you know it is already here. When you persist in this feeling, even when appearances seem to contradict it, you prove your faith. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality, and the unseen is far more real than what eyes behold. You may be surrounded by evidence of poverty, yet within you, you must live in the consciousness of wealth. That inner state will eventually draw to itself its outer counterpart. As surely as a magnet draws iron, you must hold fast to the feeling of wealth, as though it were already the truth of your life, for indeed it is. All outer change begins with inner certainty. You will come to see that the state akin to sleep is not merely a technique, but a gateway to divine communion. Each night, as you drift into that sacred drowsiness, you are entering the workshop of the infinite. There, you are the potter shaping your own clay. There, you speak directly to the creative power of your being. What you decree in that stillness becomes the law of your existence. If you decree wealth with conviction and joy, wealth must come. The world may call it coincidence or fortune, but you will know it is the law fulfilling itself through you. When you understand these two keys, you no longer fear the future. You know that your wealth is not in banks, nor in men, nor in opportunity, but in consciousness. Consciousness is your eternal treasure. To dwell in the feeling of wealth is to dwell in the secret place of the Most High. There, nothing can fail you. There, every promise is already fulfilled. You are no longer a beggar asking for favor. You are the Creator bestowing it. All that you could ever desire is already within you, waiting only for recognition. And so, each night, as you close your eyes, let the last thought that passes through your mind be one of fulfillment. Feel that you are already what you wish to be. Feel that you already possess what you desire. In that sacred moment between waking and sleep, you are rewriting the script of your life. And as surely as night turns to day, your outer world will mirror your inner conviction. This is the eternal law. This is the secret of creation. And this is the beginning of your unending wealth. The third key lies in the art of surrender. For until you have learned to release your desire completely into the stillness of being, you cannot allow it to manifest through the divine order. The mind of man is restless, always trying to control, always attempting to dictate how and when the unseen must appear. Yet creation is not the product of control, but of trust. You must understand that imagination creates reality, not through effort, but through acceptance. When you have entered the state akin to sleep and impress your desire upon the subconscious through feeling, your work is complete. From that moment, your only task is to rest in the assurance that it is already done. Doubt is the only enemy. Worry, fear, and impatience are the weeds that choke the seed before it can bloom. You cannot serve two masters. You either live in the consciousness of fulfillment or the consciousness of lack. Choose the one you wish to serve and abide there faithfully. Surrender is the highest act of faith. To surrender is to know that the creative power within you is infinitely wise, infinitely capable, and infinitely faithful. You have planted the seed of wealth. Now let the soil of subconscious nurture it. Do not dig it up each morning to see if it has grown. Do not question whether it is working. Simply allow. The unseen is never idle. It is always arranging, combining, and unfolding according to your inner assumption. The path from imagination to manifestation is invisible to the conscious mind, yet perfect in its order. You could not trace the intricate lines by which your desire moves into form, nor should you attempt to. The how is never your concern. Your concern is only to maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you surrender completely to that feeling, you release resistance, and the law moves without obstruction. There will come moments when the old state of lack will call to you, for the world will still mirror fragments of your former belief. Do not be deceived. The outer world is but the reflection of yesterday's imagination. If the reflection shows you something less than what you desire, smile inwardly, for you know that its roots are already dissolved. The new seed is planted, and time is the only servant required for its flowering. Every appearance contrary to your wish is but the dying echo of a former state. Ignore it, and it will fade away. To fight appearances is to give them life. To ignore them is to starve them of reality. True surrender is not indifference, but trust. It is not passivity, but spiritual rest. It is the calm knowing that what you have imagined is already established in the unseen. To surrender is to become one with your creation. You no longer look for it. You feel from it. You no longer seek evidence. You live in conviction. And as you walk through your days, you will notice a strange ease taking over you. The struggle to make things happen will dissolve, replaced by an inner assurance that everything needed is already in motion. You will begin to experience coincidences, opportunities, and inspired ideas that seem to come from nowhere, yet you will know they come from within. The world is merely catching up to the state you have accepted as true. Surrender is not weakness. It is the mastery of faith. It is the silent confidence that what you have done in imagination is done forever. It is the moment you take your hands off the wheel and let the divine intelligence steer your course. The more deeply you surrender, the faster your manifestations appear, for resistance is the only barrier to speed. When the mind ceases its grasping, when it no longer wonders if or when, creation becomes instantaneous. It is your inner stillness that moves the universe. It is your surrender that opens the gates of wealth. For every seed of desire requires nourishment, and that nourishment is the steady maintenance of feeling. You cannot plant the seed once and then live in contradiction to it all day long. You cannot feel wealth in imagination and then walk through the world in fear of lack. The subconscious is always listening, always recording the tone of your inner conversations. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you dwell upon, is a command issued to the creative power within. Therefore, persistence in the assumption means living as though your desire were already accomplished, regardless of appearances. It is to remain faithful to the invisible vision until the visible world bends to match it. You may find that as you persist in the feeling of wealth, the outer world will test your conviction. Bills may come, opportunities may delay, or circumstances may seem to contradict your inner knowing. Do not waver. The test is not punishment, but purification. It is the moment the law asks, do you still believe? And your answer must always be yes. You must walk as though every sign of lack were only a passing illusion, for indeed it is. The law of assumption is no respecter of persons. It works for the faithful and the doubter alike, but only the faithful reap its promise. When you persist in the assumption that you are already wealthy, every obstacle must eventually dissolve, for persistence wears down resistance as water-shaped stone. You may not yet see the path by which your wealth will come, but you must continue to live in the feeling of possession. When doubt whispers, return to your inner sanctuary. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the fullness of wealth again. Let the inner world be more real to you than the outer. The outer changes only as the inner changes. Each time you reaffirm your feeling, you strengthen the vibration, you deepen the impression, you hasten the manifestation. It is not repetition of words, but repetition of feeling that moves mountains. The more often you return to that sacred state, the sooner the subconscious accepts it as fact. Once accepted, it must outpicture itself in your experience. Persistence is love in action. It is the love of your own vision that keeps you returning to it again and again until it becomes the only reality you know. The man who persists does not force the world to yield. He compels himself to believe. He is not swayed by appearances because he knows appearances are only delayed reflections. He walks by faith and not by sight. And the world, obedient as always, reshapes itself around his conviction. Every great manifestation is born from persistence. The seed of wealth you planted in the state akin to sleep will grow, but you must water it daily with faith and feeling. When you rise each morning, carry the vibration of wealth with you. Speak not of what you lack, but of what you are. Think not of what must be done, but of what is already done. The imagination must always precede the fact, and persistence ensures that imagination remains alive long enough to take root. The one who gives up too soon uproots the seed before it can bloom. Remember always that wealth is a state of consciousness, not a number in a ledger. You cannot hold on to outer things if your inner state remains poor, but when your consciousness is rich, even if all were taken from you, you would recreate abundance effortlessly, for the law would still obey your inner command. Persist, therefore, not for the sake of having things, but for the sake of becoming one with the state of wealth itself. When wealth becomes your natural state, money and opportunity will flow toward you as effortlessly as breath flows through the body. The persistence I speak of is not struggle, nor forced repetition, but quiet certainty. It is the inner knowing that cannot be shaken by appearances. It is the unbroken awareness that what you have assumed already exists in the unseen. You persist not by striving, but by resting in conviction. You persist not by seeking evidence, but by knowing that evidence must appear. When this attitude becomes natural, you have mastered the law. And so, when the world outside appears unchanged, you remain untroubled. You smile, for you know the unseen has already shifted. You walk in gratitude, as one who has received, not one who waits. You think from the end, not toward it. And in due time, that end fixed within you will unfold before your eyes as fact. For persistence is the heartbeat of creation, and the law must obey the rhythm of your faith. When these two keys, surrender and persistence, unite within you, the law works with perfect precision. You surrender to the power that creates, and you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You release and yet remain faithful. You rest and yet believe. And as you do, the unseen forces of imagination move quietly through every corner of your life, arranging, aligning, and delivering the abundance you have already claimed in consciousness. In that silent union of surrender and persistence, wealth ceases to be a dream and becomes the natural expression of your being. The fifth key is the sacred art of inner conversation, for it is through the unspoken words you utter within yourself that the entire drama of your life is shaped. Every man is talking inwardly all day long, and the world he experiences is nothing but the echo of those inner words made visible. If you wish to transform your financial state, you must first transform the conversation you hold in the secret chambers of your mind. You may speak of abundance with your lips, but if in your inner world you complain of lack, if you whisper to yourself of limitation, if you see yourself as one struggling to get by, then no amount of outer effort will alter your reality. The subconscious hears only what you truly feel and believe, and it builds your world accordingly. The great secret is that your inner speech precedes every event of your life. What you say within yourself just before sleep, what you feel as real in that quiet state akin to sleep, becomes the living reality of your tomorrow. When you close your eyes at night and enter that drowsy stillness, do not carry with you the voice of fear or doubt. Replace every inner word of struggle with the voice of mastery and fulfillment. If the day has shown you lack, do not let that image be your final word. Before you surrender to sleep, affirm silently that you are already in possession of great wealth. Speak inwardly from that place, not to it. Instead of saying, I will be rich, say, I am rich now. Let that declaration be felt, not as an empty phrase, but as the pulse of your being. Let your inner tone match the satisfaction of already being supplied. When this becomes your nightly conversation, your subconscious, the faithful servant, will accept it as the law of your life and outpicture it as circumstance. You must become the guardian of your inner speech, for it is more potent than any action you can take. During your waking hours, observe the tone of your thoughts. If you catch yourself saying, I cannot afford that, stop immediately, for such words are decrees of limitation. Replace them instantly with, all that I need flows to me effortlessly. The mind that speaks abundance draws abundance, for it vibrates at the frequency of wealth. The mind that speaks of lack repels wealth, for it affirms separation. The world is a mirror, and it reflects what you continuously whisper within yourself. You are never punished for your thoughts. You are punished by them. Likewise, you are never rewarded for faith. You are rewarded through faith. The conversation you hold in imagination determines the pattern of your experience, for imagination is the only creative power. The inner voice is not merely thought, it is the vibration of consciousness in motion. Every time you imagine yourself receiving money, every time you inwardly thank life for the blessings already yours, you are tuning yourself to the rhythm of abundance. Gratitude, spoken inwardly in faith, multiplies what it touches. It is the language of acceptance. To feel gratitude before the appearance of wealth is to align yourself with the cause rather than the effect. The grateful heart magnetizes every good thing. The complaining heart closes the door to it. Therefore, each night as you drift into the state akin to sleep, let gratitude be your final conversation. Feel thankfulness not because you hope to receive, but because you know you already have. Gratitude is the fragrance of fulfillment. It is the sure sign that the wish has been accepted by the subconscious. When the feeling of gratitude arises naturally, manifestation is already underway. Many believe that inner speech is harmless, that thoughts come and go like clouds without consequence. But imagination is not idle. Every word within you is a creative act. To speak wealth inwardly is to set in motion the forces that bring wealth into visibility. The world may tell you that you must labor for every dollar, that wealth is scarce and reserved for the few. But you are not bound by the world's opinions. You are governed by your imagination, and imagination knows no scarcity. The more you affirm inwardly your oneness with abundance, the more life will show you its reflection. Every time you imagine receiving, the unseen currents of your reality shift slightly to accommodate that vision. The outer world bends to match your inner state, which is the sacred practice of living from the end. To live from the end is to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled so completely that you no longer seek or question its reality. You feel it as done. You walk as though every desire were already accomplished. You think, act, and speak as one who has received. Most people live toward the end, always striving, always waiting for something to happen in the future. But the law of consciousness demands that you live from the end. You must enter the feeling of completion and dwell there as your natural home. In imagination, the end is the beginning. The moment you feel yourself to be wealthy, the unseen power within you begins to express that assumption outwardly. When you live from the end, you cease to pray for manifestation. You pray from it. You no longer ask. You give thanks. You no longer wait. You rest. To live from the end is to understand that your desire exists now, though unseen in a higher dimension of consciousness. You touch it each time you feel its reality and imagination. Every time you assume the end and rest in its feeling, you are aligning your world with that fulfilled state. The law cannot fail to bring it forth, for consciousness is the only reality, and what you are conscious of being must externalize itself. If you would manifest money, you must live now as the man who already has it. This does not mean pretending or acting outwardly. It means feeling inwardly that it is already so. When you rise in the morning, move through your day with the quiet assurance that all your needs are met. Do not measure your faith by appearances. If your wallet is empty, let it be to you as though it were full. If opportunities seem distant, feel that they are already fulfilled. Let your imagination create the bridge of incidents through which your assumption will be made visible. The man who lives from the end no longer seeks signs. He knows that the signs follow him. He is no longer anxious about outcomes, for his outcome was secured the moment he assumed it in imagination. To live from the end is the highest form of faith, for it requires you to deny the evidence of your senses and trust the unseen. It asks you to walk by inner vision rather than outer sight. When you live from the end, you do not try to make things happen. You simply allow them to unfold. You remain faithful to your inner feeling, and the outer world conforms to it in perfect timing. This is not wishful thinking, but divine knowing. To live from the end is to live as the creator, not the beggar. You no longer ask, when will it come? For you understand it already has. Living from the end transforms your entire perception of life. Every encounter becomes an echo of your inner state. You cease to struggle, for you know that creation is finished. All possible realities exist now. waiting only for your assumption to bring them into focus. The moment you choose to feel yourself wealthy, that version of you begins to draw breath in another dimension. The bridge to that version is built through your persistence in the feeling. As you return to it night after night in the state akin to sleep, you strengthen the vibration until it dominates your consciousness. Then, the outer world, obedient to the inner cause, must rearrange itself to reflect your chosen end. To live from the end is to live in harmony with the divine order of life. It is to align yourself with the principle that imagination creates reality. You are not creating something new when you assume the feeling of wealth. You are selecting it from the infinite field of possibility. Every state exists now, awaiting your recognition. The state of wealth is as real as the state of poverty. The only difference is your attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. And what you sustain in attention must eventually appear in form. To live from the end is to fix your attention on the fulfilled desire, refusing to be distracted by appearances. It is to rest in the knowing that the unseen is already real, and that your only work is to sustain the feeling until it becomes the only truth you know. When these keys are understood and applied, life becomes a sacred play. You no longer react to circumstances as though they had power over you, for you know that they are shadows of your own consciousness. The state akin to sleep becomes your nightly temple, your inner speech becomes your creative command, and living from the end becomes your way of being. You are no longer at the mercy of fate, for you have become the master of assumption. Money and wealth are no longer distant goals, but natural expressions of your inner state. They come as effortlessly as the dawn, for they were always yours, waiting only for you to claim them in consciousness. The divine art of letting go, the silent confidence that allows your desire to flow into form without resistance. So many strive to make things happen through effort, through worry, through anxious repetition, yet the law of assumption moves not by struggle, but by stillness. When you have impressed your subconscious with the feeling of wealth, your only work is to rest in the knowing that it is done. You no longer need to push, to question, to look for evidence. The seed you have sown in the depths of imagination is already alive, already growing in the unseen. Every attempt to force its growth reveals doubt, and doubt is the only thing that delays manifestation. Surrender is not giving up. It is giving over to the higher power within you that knows exactly how to bring your vision to pass. You cease to interfere with divine order and allow life to move on your behalf. This surrender is not passive. It is the highest form of faith. It is to stand inwardly firm while outwardly at ease, to live as though all were already accomplished. You let the world unfold naturally, trusting that every event, every encounter, every circumstance is a part of the unseen bridge that leads you to the fulfillment of your desire. You do not try to direct or control that bridge, for it forms perfectly according to your assumption. Many imagine that they must decide how their wealth will come, from what source, through what channel, yet imagination is the only source, and it chooses the path of least resistance. Your task is not to design the route, but to persist in the feeling that the journey is complete. In surrender, you discover a peace that surpasses understanding, for you no longer measure progress by outer signs. The mind that worries over results is still rooted in the consciousness of lack. The man who truly believes never checks to see if the seed has sprouted. He knows that what he has assumed will appear, and he rests in that knowing. When you release your grip on the outer, the inner power moves freely, unhindered by your anxiety. Wealth begins to flow to you in ways you could never have imagined, for imagination alone knows how to fulfill itself. You will find that people, opportunities, and circumstances arrange themselves in perfect order, drawn magnetically by your inner conviction. The invisible becomes visible in divine timing, never early, never late, but always right. To surrender is to trust the rhythm of life. Just as the ocean trusts the moon to pull its tides, you must trust consciousness to draw your manifestations into form. When you imagine and feel wealth as real, the universe begins to reconfigure itself to match your vibration. But if you pull at the process, doubting and interfering, you distort the flow. The law cannot be hurried, for it operates in harmony with your faith. Every time you rest in the assumption, every time you choose to remain still instead of anxious, you are watering the seed of your desire. You do not need to see movement to know it is happening, for the unseen world is always working before the seen world can show evidence. Surrender teaches you that control belongs only to consciousness. The outer world is powerless without the inner cause. When you truly grasp this, you stop reacting to appearances altogether. If you appear to lose money, you remain unmoved, for you know that the appearance is but a shadow of an old state. You hold to the feeling of abundance as your reality, and the shadow must soon dissolve. Every act of surrender reaffirms your authority over the visible world. The more you release the urge to control, the more easily control returns to you. For mastery is effortless alignment with the unseen. When surrender becomes natural, manifestation becomes inevitable. You begin to see that everything unfolds with a kind of divine intelligence, a gentle orchestration that requires no interference. The people you need will come. The ideas you require will rise effortlessly in your mind. The circumstances will align with precision. All you must do is remain faithful to the end you've assumed, and let the invisible power do the rest. The wealth you desire is not something you must chase. It is something you must allow. Allowance is the language of surrender, and it speaks directly to the subconscious. Each night as you enter the state akin to sleep, release all concern, all strain, all effort. Whisper inwardly, "It is done." And let that be the final word. To surrender is to love the process as much as the promise. It is to walk through each day in quiet confidence, knowing that you already possess what you once longed for. It is to live as the fulfilled being, grateful, serene, unshaken by delay. This trust in the unseen power is the final seal upon your manifestation. When you no longer need to make it happens effortlessly. When you no longer chase it, it runs toward you. When you cease to worry about time, time itself rearranges to meet you at the appointed hour. The state akin to sleep is where you plant the seed, but surrender is where you let it grow. Together they form the divine rhythm of creation, the heartbeat of the law itself, forever whispering that imagination is the only reality and that the wealth you seek is already within you, waiting for your quiet acceptance of its truth. All that you have sought through striving, through longing, through effort was never outside of you. It has always been within, waiting for your recognition. The journey of assuming the state akin to sleep for the manifestation of wealth is not merely about attracting money or possessions. It is about awakening to the truth that you are the source of all riches. Every coin, every opportunity, every symbol of abundance that appears in the outer world is born first in the invisible realm of imagination. When you understand this, you no longer chase shadows. You turn inward to the light that casts them, and you live from that inner radiance until the outer must conform. The world is not a cause, but an effect. Not the sculptor, but the sculpture. Each circumstance in your life is a perfect reflection of your inner assumption. When you embrace this truth, you become free. You cease to blame others, to plead with fate, or to beg the universe. You take your rightful place as the creator of your own experience. The law responds with precision to every feeling you impress upon it. It does not judge, it does not question, it simply reflects. And so, if you would change your reflection, change your feeling, enter that sacred state, akin to sleep each night, not as one who is hoping, but as one who knows. Drift into the silence with the feeling that all you desire is already accomplished, and let that feeling be your final awareness before sleep takes you. As you persist in this inner conviction, life begins to move in ways that appear miraculous. You find that new doors open without effort, unexpected blessings unfold, and the very air seems charged with favor. But it is not chance, it is law. It is the unfailing response of the subconscious to the command of the imagination. When you live as though you already possess what you seek, the universe must rearrange itself to mirror that state. Your assumption hardens into fact, because consciousness alone is reality. To live in the end is to rest in the knowledge that all is already complete. The great secret is not in asking, but in knowing. You no longer cry out for abundance. You breathe as abundance itself. You no longer struggle to become wealthy. You live as wealth personified. This is the divine art of manifestation, the effortless power of assumption. When you master this, life ceases to be a struggle and becomes a dance. Every step, every encounter, every moment unfolds in harmony with the vision you hold within. So let this be your final remembrance. You are the operant power. The law works through you, not outside of you. The riches you desire are not somewhere in the distant future. They are already established in the eternal now, awaiting your recognition. Rest each night in the feeling of fulfillment. Walk each day as though the invisible promise were already visible. And know, with unwavering faith, that what you have assumed in love must one day appear in form. For imagination creates reality, and you are imagination itself, made manifest.